Friends, it's time for another edition of ACC Baseball Etc, presented as always by Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. You can go to pitchlogic.com for more information. Hi there, I'm Daron Vaught. Danny Graves is here. It's getting to be that time of the year, Gravy. We're creeping up on conference tournaments, postseason baseball. It's the time of year where we, hit the play button on something like this, an episode of our show, and it becomes important. Okay, what's left to play for? What is left to be determined for the remainder of this season? And again, as you get closer and closer to the end of the season, those things become important. So I think today we're going to talk mostly about what's left to be played for this season, especially when it comes to the ACC, because we have an ACC Baseball Championship in Charlotte coming up in a few weeks' time. We have 4 unoccupied spots in that ACC Baseball Championship. 6 teams currently not in. Okay. Wake Forest, surprisingly, preseason number 1, still has not clinched a berth. Georgia Tech has not clinched a berth yet. Those two are about 4 games up in the standings from everybody else. BC, Notre Dame, Miami, and Pitt down at the bottom of the conference. Wake Forest and Georgia Tech are in. They're going to get in. They have substantial leads. Like they would need, and it's not going to be necessarily easy for the Yellow Jackets. They've got Duke and at Florida State to finish their season. I think, assuming they don't get swept through all 6 of those, they're going to be in the tournament.
Yeah.
Wake Forest,
they're 12th in the nation. They're going to be in the tournament.
we can't even imagine a scenario where Wake Forest does not make the ACC Baseball Championship. And again, they've got the advantage to this point. So it's more likely than not that Wake and Georgia Tech are in. What it really comes down to is those other 2 spots and 4 other schools. Pitt is behind the others in the standings. They also have FSU coming up. On my sheet here, Gravy, I've already got an X next to Pitt. Okay. So for my calculating, I essentially have it down to 3 teams for 2 spots. BC, Notre Dame, and Miami for the final 2 spots. Interestingly, Boston College and Notre Dame, non-conference weeks this week. They don't play conference games. But they finish out the season. BC is at Clemson, and Notre Dame is at Louisville. I think Miami's got a chance to sneak in.
Because they're hosting Pitt the last weekend.
And they're at Virginia Tech this weekend. That's a gettable series. And they host Pitt in the last week of the season. I think Miami's going to sneak in.
Wow. When you were hinting at this before we started, I kept thinking of what's he got under his sleeve? But that makes complete sense, that because Boston College is at Clemson, the number 2 team in the nation. Notre Dame is at Louisville, and Louisville, is a lot better now than what they were before, right?
Louisville's, I got news for people. Louisville's fringe ranked right now. This is a team that has come a long way since the start of the season.
Yeah. Man.
I don't mean to get your hopes up, but
no,
I think
that makes complete sense. On paper, Clemson should take care of Boston College. And I think Miami has a good chance to take care of, has an easier chance to take care of Pitt than Boston College trying to get Clemson. Right?
Yeah.
So, that makes total sense. And especially finishing at home, I don't know what their home and road splits are, but I mean, anytime you get to finish a season at home when something's on the line, that's definitely a little more comfortable.
Yeah, Miami this season. Let's see, home 18-13, and they're 3-12 on the road.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a significant difference.
Significant. 3 games they won on the road all year. Wow.
3.
Yeah.
So maybe we got that to look forward to. Some fun Mark Light magic to secure a spot in the ACC baseball tournament. That'd be kind of fun on the final weekend of the season.
Yeah. Well, Boston College, their road record's 12-9, better than their home record, but they are 1-9 in their last 10 with 6 straight losses. So,
yeah. So
finishing against Clemson is not going to be an easy task.
No, not at all. Not at all. So the schedule favors Miami. That's kind of fun. That's something to watch out for. And obviously, tournament seeding matters because that determines pool placement in the early going of the ACC Baseball Championship. So yeah, no, there's plenty to look at in these final few weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Individual honors, also something to look at as we get down the stretch of the season. So something like an ACC Pitcher of the Year award comes into focus.
That's only one.
That's
right?
Chase Burns, right? Like that.
Yeah. And that's not to knock on Jamie Arnold, who's having an exceptional year.
Yeah.
What Chase Burns has been doing is unheard of. I mean,
so it feels like I'm with you. It feels like Chase Burns is the guy. Burns 9-1. ERA is 3 even through 12 starts. 140 strikeouts. That's 39 more than Jamie Arnold through the same number of starts. And again, Arnold's ERA for the season is 2.37. Really good. Jonathan Santucci has also had a good season. But it's Chase Burns. It's got to be. So that one, I think, is, relatively close to set in stone. Some very, very crazy things would have to happen for that not to be the case. I think that one's.
But what kind of crazy thing could happen? Like I've been trying to think.
This is good.
Yeah, like how it's his to lose. How can he lose it? Right?
Yeah, give up 10 runs in each of his last 2 starts.
They'd have to be, earned runs. They'd have to be earned runs. And because he's still going to strike out the world. And I guess Jamie Arnold would have to, and Santucci and
Arnold would continue to have to do what he's been doing, right? Put up in their last 2 seasons. Arnold tosses a couple of gems, maybe even a complete game shutout in one of them. 10 strikeouts or more. Maybe that would be enough. Like 2 duds of starts for Burns and 2 absolute gems for Arnold to finish out the season. Maybe that would be enough.
Well, what about Aiden Knack? Is that how you say his name? Knack,
right?
Knack.
I admittedly, I need to double check on that. I've been saying Knack all year, but I have not had them for a game. So that's
me neither.
A bit of negligence on my part.
My part too, because I brought him up and wasn't exactly sure. Anyways, I am sure that he is second in ERA in ACC.
Well, and in ACC play, he leads in ERA.
Right.
His conference ERA is sub 2. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Well, he's up there in opposing batting average too.
Yeah.
Strikeouts, he's 4th.
Yep.
It's hard to get away from Chase Burns, those 140 strikeouts in 75 innings. I mean, that's almost 2 an inning. You can maybe think that that's normal with a reliever, but this is a guy that's throwing 6 or 7 innings every game.
Yeah.
And to have almost 2 strikeouts an inning is absurd.
Canuck. So that's
Canuck.
Aiden. I have said knack all year. That is on me. That's my apologies. Canuck is Aiden's last name, the pronunciation. I did, in the event that I was botching it, want to make sure we clear that up. Canuck.
Well, but when have you said his name though?
Never.
Like, did you? Okay, so then you haven't.
I mean, just like in conversation, not even in an on-air capacity, right? Like, I mean, maybe a time or two on our show here, but anyways, Canuck.
Yeah,
Canuck.
Canuck.
Now I got it. It's locked in there. Apologies to Aiden. So, but you're right. He's been really good too.
Yeah.
And is worth mentioning.
Yes.
Will not win it, but is worth mentioning.
Right.
It's kind of a lock. Pitcher of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Can we say the same about ACC Player of the Year?
That it's a lock?
Yeah.
No.
What's your instinct?
Well, you could go James Tibbs, Florida State,
who I believe to be the front runner.
Okay, you do? I mean,
I think front runner by a relatively significant margin.
Oh, okay. Well, then need I say more?
Well, I'm curious who else you have in that mix.
Well, I think Blake Wright doesn't get enough credit. I don't know if he would get, a ton of votes. I don't know what his batting average is, but he's always doing something.
Yeah,
Nick
Wright's
Kurtz,
338 batting average.
Okay.
Slugging not quite 700. But
Drew Burris, Parks Harbor.
Harbor's an interesting one.
I mean, he's the heart of their order. I know Vance Honeycutt is the man there, but Parks Harbor has been a huge piece of that lineup.
Harbor 366, on base 447, 733 slug, 17 homers, 51 RBIs. He's been solid. I do think he's now I'm looking at these totals here. Is he the first team first baseman all ACC ahead of Nick Kurtz?
I don't know. That's tough.
Because I'm trying to build a hierarchy in terms of players of the year. And then, they've got their position next to them and it becomes apparent, oh, we got multiple people at that position.
So can somebody be the ACC first baseman of the year and not be the ACC player of the year? It goes to a different first baseman? That can't happen, right?
No, Nick Kurtz.
But he's the player of the year. Yeah.
Like if Nick Kurtz was player of the year, but was second team first baseman.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened.
No. So, okay. So maybe let's take Parks Harbor out of the equation.
Yeah, I think he's very good. First or second team all ACC. He's had a very, very good season.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Drew Burris, has got to be in the mix.
I think he is, man. Like, it's one thing to lead the league in homers, but he's hitting 366, on base 482.
Yeah,
with the home runs and the extra base hits. Yeah, his slugging's well above.
Slugging.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe he's more in the mix than I initially thought. Because we go as we progress from award to award. Obviously, freshman of the year, I think, is pretty clearly Burris.
Yeah, I think so.
but that doesn't keep him out of the mix for player of the year. He's all right. So he's up there. I think
maybe voters will say he's got more years to come, so they're not going to give it to him.
Yeah, maybe. You mentioned Vance Honeycutt. I think he still is in the conversation. The average is at 330, not what some of the other guys' averages are. 18 home runs. He's stolen 26 bases.
Mm-hmm.
There's a value there, and I know this is not a most valuable player title. The award, I think it's technically most outstanding player or player of the year. It's player of the year.
Player of the year, yeah.
For the tournament, it's most outstanding player. So it's a player of the year. But like, if we're thinking of it in the same way that we think of most valuable player, I think Vance is as valuable to his team as anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that aspect, Nick Kurtz is. Cam Canarella is.
No, true.
Yeah. I mean, we could pick probably one from a few different teams that are really valuable. If they didn't have them, they wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
Could you give it to a pitcher? No, because he's already got there's already a pitcher.
There, right? So that would be the difference between this and an MVP award. It's okay. Right. There's a player of the year and then this. Kurtz, I'm looking at the numbers too. Like Kurtz's on base is 532.
Yeah. That's insane.
He's walked 12 more times at this point than anyone else in the conference.
What's he hitting?
324. But again, he's had sort of a weird, you almost can't compare that because he's had such a weird year, because there's like this. Right. Bonds is a stretch of a comparison, but like he's not getting intentionally walked, but there is a Bonds level effect on his numbers.
Yeah. Well, he's also got the eye of Juan Soto too. Like,
yeah, right. Well, that's it, right? His line presents more like Barry Bonds when he plays more like Juan Soto, right? I think that's the way to say it.
Yeah.
To me, it's Tibbs. If the season was to end right now, I could be convinced, I think, to sway over to Kurtz. But
are we part of the voting committee since we are part of the Player of the Week committee?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm new to this. So
I'm very new to this too.
I don't know if our regular voting for Player of the Week makes us Player of the Year voters.
Well, we need to find that out because that'd be really
we need
cool.
Answers.
Yes.
All right. I'll text our guy John O at the ACC right now and be like, "What does this mean? What did we agree to?"
Yeah. Are we part of this committee, or is that like you just used us for the year? Just kidding.
Okay. All right. So something left to be seen and determined. Something to look forward to for the remainder of the season. That is pretty good.
Yeah.
Tibbs and Kurtz, is it down to those two?
Probably.
Could Honeycutt
I would say
go on a tear? Could Burris go on a tear?
They both could, yeah.
And secure it. Yeah. No, I think it's up for grabs. I
would almost go Tibbs, Kurtz, and Burris.
Yeah.
Any order. Honeycutt.
I started this topic thinking it was going to be Tibbs. And he's kind of the front runner. But this seems way more wide open than I thought.
Well, Tibbs hitting almost 400, 390 plus, and he has pretty much the whole year. Yep. He's leading in slugging. He is third in on-base percentage, close to 500. And then RBIs, he's leading by 5 at this moment. I mean, he's second in home runs at 19, one behind the leader. If you look at the stats, he's at the top of the list on just about everything in every category.
Which, again, is why I say if the season ended right now, I think it's him.
Yeah. Yeah, if he goes 0 for the rest of the season, Kurtz and Burris and Honeycutt go nuts, then it won't be him. Right? I mean,
yeah.
By the time
but like they wouldn't even need to go nuts, right? You just outperform him slightly for the remainder of the year, and it could be enough.
Right, right.
I've got a dark horse.
What do you have?
If he continues his hot hitting and goes on a little bit of a heater in the final couple of weeks of the season, I'm keeping an eye on Jacob Cozart.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know that he could do quite enough to put himself in that conversation to be, considered. I think he could easily propel himself into the top 5.
Okay, so what do you see happening? Like, why is he your dark horse? I love it.
Yeah, he's on a tear lately. He's up to 15 home runs. The average is above 300 now. And NC State's on a bit of a run. So I could see that happening.
Okay, I like it.
Again, you just got to have massive weekends the last 2 weeks, but we've seen it before. It's not like it hasn't happened. Somebody could take the season by storm in these last 2 weeks and emerge as player of the year. Maybe it's Blake Wright for Clemson. Maybe it's it's there are people sort of on the fringes of this conversation, as we say Tibbs, Kurtz, Burris, who could take it over. Now, those 3 at the top of the list are just as likely to have
good weekends, a
handful of home runs in a weekend and that sort of thing. But honestly, I came into this thinking Burns pitcher of the year, Tibbs player of the year. We didn't have as much to talk about.
Yeah.
But I feel really good about watching that race in the final 2 weeks. That's fun.
So Wake Forest finishes with Clemson, right? Is that what we said?
Yeah. Or Clemson this weekend, right?
Oh, this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Clemson finishes with Boston College. So Blake Wright could put up some ridiculous numbers against Boston College. He does have to face Chase Burns this weekend. But Nick Kurtz has to face Aiden Canuck, Ethan Darden. I mean, really good pitching staff at Clemson.
Yep.
Drew Burris, Gage Zeal at Miami is pitching like Gage Zeal, but he could tear up the rest of that pitching staff. Like there's so many things that could happen still.
Yeah. For Miami, just going back to it, I want them to walk off pit on the last day of the season to secure a spot in the tournament. I would love that. That would be fun.
I would too. But that would be really cool if we were on live when that happened. That would be pretty awesome. So if you had one player to watch down the stretch, you would say Jacob Cozart, or you're just saying Cozart?
I don't know. Even if he has a really good 2 weeks, I don't know if there's enough there to put himself in player of the year territory. Outside of the top 3 that we identified. right?
Yeah.
Can we do
Yeah.
that? We'll each pick one. Outside of James Tibbs at Florida State, outside of Nick Kurtz at Wake Forest, and Drew Burris at Georgia Tech, I think the next would be Honeycutt.
Yes. I mean,
because he's capable of huge weekends. And I mean, he's within striking distance. Like if you're going to use the batting average as one of the key markers, he's within better striking distance than Cozart. And he's got the home runs and the stolen bases to go with it. And like,
and defensively,
we don't overlook his defense. He was the defensive player of the year in the conference last year. That's another thing that needs to be handed out. And maybe it's him again. I don't know. But something to keep an eye on and something to incorporate when you do talk about his candidacy as player of the year in the conference. For me, outside of those top three, it would be Honeycutt.
Yeah, I can't argue that. Like there's, I mean, he's definitely the closest to being that.
But I think you mentioned again right off the top, Blake Wright. It's another one. Could give him a couple of good weekends, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's him.
Right. It could be. It could be. But he's got to face Chase Burns at least one game. That's never going to be a fun thing. I'll go right to that. Well, they got to face Chase Burns. Well, he's got to face Chase Burns too. And so
I was asked this. I hopped on Sirius XM yesterday morning with our friends Wes Durham and Roddy Jones. And I believe it was Wes, very simply said, you got to pick one team to win the tournament in Charlotte. Who are you leaning? And just like, don't think about it, gut, go. Do you have an answer to that? I'll reveal mine. But what would you say to that?
Well, one, I would just, let me look at the teams. I would say.
You're thinking. I said no thinking.
Well, no, I'm looking at the list. Well, I don't think Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia. I don't think any Duke. I would say maybe NC State. I would throw NC State in there because the other teams that I'm like Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia, Duke, those teams don't have to win this tournament. I mean, it's always nice to win the tournament. Well, we see every year that teams kind of go into it. If you lose that first game, you're done. Pretty much. If you go into 1-1 in pool play, you're done. Basically, right? So unless, how can I explain this? There's teams that were 1-1 that were higher ranked last year that didn't care if they won or not.
Sure. Because it not that they're not trying to win the ACC Championship, but it doesn't matter as much to them in terms of ultimate goals, getting to Omaha,
setting up for the regionals and all that. Yeah. So I'm just going to throw out NC State without.
I like that. I like that. I considered it because again, they're playing really well as of late. We've talked about their experience with their starting pitching, which I think matters.
Yeah.
But you know what I told Wes and Roddy? It went totally counter to that.
Oh. What do you got?
The experience in the pitching staff. It went totally counter to that. I said maybe the Heels.
Okay.
They have this thing about them. The May Magic. You get through the exams, and I'm telling you, most teams play lighter. Most teams play freer. You can't always quantify it the way that you can quantify North Carolina playing flat out better. They just play better once they get through the school part.
Right.
Last time this tournament was in Charlotte, they won it. Last time Vance Honeycutt was fully healthy for a full season, happened to be the same season, and they won it.
Right. 2 years ago. Right.
2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
I saw their freshman, the true freshman, who's now their Friday guy, as I guess, Jason DeCaro.
DeCaro, legit.
Really good.
Yeah.
There's enough there. Shea Sprague is a transfer from Elon who has stepped up into that number 2 role in their rotation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Steady. There's enough there.
Yeah.
You're not going to hit him hard. And then they've got 2 of the most oft used relievers in the country in Matthew Mateus and Dalton Pence. And they're like very good, reliable guys on the back end. There's some in between where they've had maybe some concerns. And that would be like the big question mark is getting it from the front to the back, pitching staff wise. But like they hit a ton. They're dynamic. They do it. When I last saw them, it was against Virginia Tech, and it became very apparent to me. Virginia Tech, I'd be interested to look at their numbers for the season. Like what percentage of their runs scored came in on home runs. Virginia Tech. I think it's probably a very high percentage for them.
Yeah.
It's a heavy reliance on the long ball.
Right.
North Carolina hits a lot of home runs. But everybody in that lineup, when they get on base, they run. They stretch it. They extend plays in ways that, they score from first on a double in the gap. They're constantly, habitually moving from first to third on a single. They bunt runners over when necessary, and they do it effectively. It's a well-oiled machine. And
yeah.
It feels like all the right decisions get made when they have guys on base and they're trying to move them over. And it's just like the quick heuristic snap decision of like whether you send a runner from third. That just seems to always work out for North Carolina.
Yeah.
In addition to, they are very good hitters. So I could see it. I could see it with North Carolina. I also kind of like Georgia Tech as a sneaky tournament.
Yeah, sneaking in. So the game that I did, North Carolina against Charlotte, they scored 8 runs in that first inning. And even the outs were hard hit outs. Casey Cook
productive outs. They're really good at that too, right? Like, you move a runner on a ground ball. You move a runner from not even just a sacrifice fly that scores a run. You move a guy from second to third on a fly ball. Like they do the little things offensively so well.
Yeah. So that game started out Vance Honeycutt doubles on the first pitch, doubles down the line. Casey Cook yanks one, screaming one hopper to the second baseman as for an out, moves Honeycutt over to third. Parks Harbor then hits the ball out of the ballpark. All of a sudden it's 2-0, just like that. And next thing you know, it's 8-0, just like that. Like they don't miss. And then that game, Cameron Padgett was the best that I've ever seen him. Coach Forbes even said that at the time we interviewed him during the game, that is the most consistent that he's been. And he was lights out, Daron. Like, and I've seen him pitch before. I think he pitched in the championship game or a big game last year. I don't know if it was the ACC tournament or if it was a regional.
He got a lot of, as a freshman a season ago, he got a lot of run as a midweek starter. And that had not been the case until recently this year.
Right. Oh, he was nasty. His changeup and his breaking ball were filthy that day. So you add that, him pitching well again to what they already have is, it's definitely a good problem to have when you have a bunch of guys pitching well.
Yeah. So I like them as a sneaky tournament team. I also feel like, does it feel like we've talked about Virginia because of the erratic nature of their pitching situation, but they similarly can just score runs on command. It feels like, And maybe this is because I saw them in sort of like the regional tournament setting in Jacksonville at the beginning of the year, and they came out on top in that. But it just feels like a setting where this team could thrive.
Yeah.
Maybe I like Virginia too as a potential. And we could do this thing where I eventually name every team, and it's like, oh, they could get it done. But I liked your pick of NC State. I like North Carolina. Georgia Tech is pretty interesting. They're sort of the on the outside dark horse. And then Virginia. Like between those four, there's pretty good chances. And that's, again, it's wild to say that because we're kind of just like overlooking the top 10 teams. It's like Clemson and Duke. They don't need this. Maybe somebody else can win it.
It's not like they don't want to win, but if there's a situation where they're possibly, it'd be tough to come back from a loss and try to win this tournament. They're not going to throw out their horses just to win this tournament because they're already in the region.
They got to get ready for a regional. Yeah.
Or
Wake Forest. Wake Forest could win this tournament, man. It's going to be such a fun week because anything is going to be possible. It feels like, and we could transport ourselves into the future to selection day for the NCAA regionals. And I would believe any scenario in the ACC.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so what makes it fun. That makes it a lot of fun. All right. We're going to close out with Hall of Name. Okay. I've got a special one for you because after we took such issue with LSU head coach Jay Johnson claiming that the Tigers would be the top team in any other conference in the country. And I still think, we're right. But just for fun, they went ahead and swept the number one team in the country against Texas A&M immediately following that. So I got to give you a little bit of grief for that. And as your punishment, I don't think this will be punishment because he seems by all accounts to be a pretty good guy. But as your punishment, I'm going to give you a former LSU star for your Hall of Name. Hall of Name, for those who don't know, is a part of the show where we let Danny, the closer, close out every show by giving us a glimpse into his lavish life as a college star and major league pitcher. Here's how it works. I name a former teammate of his, and he just goes. You remember the old Matchbox cars? They didn't have the wind up on them, but you would wheel them back.
Pull it back, yeah.
Yeah, you pull back and we wind them up that way. That's what I'm doing here. I'm revving Danny up and then letting the car go so it can drive and swerve into, the kitchen counters or whatever your memory of using Matchbox cars is.
Whatever we're not supposed to be doing with it.
Yeah. So this is a guy, because I've been talking a lot lately about career home run marks for programs across college baseball. And it does feel like a lot of those have been shattered. UNC Wilmington here near where I am had their single season mark, or maybe their career mark. I can't remember which one I saw. I should know that, but anyways, a home run record shattered. We're talking about Vance Honeycutt. He's 2 home runs away from tying the career mark at North Carolina, 3 away from being in sole possession of that spot. So it was kind of perfect that I was looking at single season college baseball home run records, and far up that list is 41 in a season for a guy at LSU named Brandon Larson, at one time a huge prospect for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
Didn't quite pan out the way that I, as a college baseball fan, wanted it to, or I think the way that a lot of people thought it was going to. But, man, you remember he came up with Austin Kearns, and that was like the it duo prospect-wise.
Well, and Adam Dunn, the 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
All came up about the same time.
Yeah. So, I had his baseball ref pulled up earlier, so I'm going to have to pull that back up now. So, Brandon Larson, Hall of Name, go.
So, Brandon Larson, I still speak to him occasionally. He lives here in San Antonio, close to me. And so we actually, years ago, coached a travel team one summer together. He was a manager. I was a pitching coach, but we always messed around, so we didn't get it done. But Brandon Larson is such a cool guy. I felt so bad for him because he was that big prospect coming up. And he was supposed to be the next, 30 homer guy for the Reds in that corner spot. They even moved Aaron Boone to second base one year just to kind of give it to Brandon Larson. This is your position to lose. He had so much ridiculous pop. It didn't even make sense. Like if you wanted to put somebody in a home run derby, you're putting Brandon Larson in a home run derby. His bat speed was insane. And the ball it would sound different coming off his bat. He had an unbelievable arm at third base. Well, he was a shortstop at LSU. I know that might be hard to believe, but he was a shortstop. So he moves to third base. Perfect third baseman's body, like stocky guy, had a hose for an arm. Like he would just flip it and the ball would jump out of his hand. But for some reason, like when he had his opportunities in the big leagues, it just never panned out. Like he had a lot of injuries, a lot of freak injuries, which felt so bad for him because he was always so close to figuring it out, but then when he would get back from these injuries, he would have these opportunities and he would pretty much be pressing, trying to do too much to impress everybody. And he would strike out a lot, chase a lot of bad pitches. Like he had so many freak accidents. I remember vividly in St. Louis that back when they just had a rail on the dugout, no nets or nothing, just a rail. So if you're not in the game, you just kind of hang out on top. He got smoked by a foul ball right in the head. Well, it didn't hurt his head. He fell back and broke his thumb trying to catch himself. That's the kind of freak accidents that he was suffering. And it was awful, man, because he was so close to being a star, but whenever he had his opportunity, he just never could take advantage of it. And I felt so bad for the guy because he's such a good dude. He's hilarious. Like I'm telling you, if you sat with him, you would be dying laughing all day long. He's so stinking funny. And he can sing, by the way, too. He loves to sing. Huh. Bon Jovi. Yeah. Yeah.
So wait.
I know that was just kind of all over the place. Huh?
How did you find that one out?
He would sit in the locker room and he just with his underwear on, and he would just kind of like lean back and he would kind of sniff to see if he was stunk or not. And he would put it in his nose and like snap to see if any scent would come up. And then he would just start singing Bon Jovi, Wanted, Dead or Alive, like all the time. Yeah. That's how we found that out. And it was really good. Like so good. I know it's crazy.
I forgot that he's originally from that area. So that makes total sense that you guys are near each other proximity wise. Something else I forgot about him. He was drafted 4 times.
He was
4 times. So I moved away from the page, so I got to pull back to it because he went to JUCO at Blinn College.
Okay.
Which huge athletic JUCO in Texas.
Uh-huh.
He was drafted in the 46th round in 94 out of high school. Then the 38th round the very next year out of Blinn. And then the 44th the next year out of Blinn. Then he transfers to LSU, MVP of the College World Series. That's a total stud. And the Reds take him 14th overall in 97. He was drafted 4 times.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How high was he drafted by the Reds?
14th overall.
Okay. Yeah. 41 homers. That's crazy.
Yeah. Big time. But, he's not even 300 big league at bats. 109 games over 4 years in the big leagues. Man, I remember I liked him a lot. I thought a lot of him as a college player. So I was really hoping he would pan out as a big leaguer. But that's cool that you guys like coached together. That's fun.
Yeah, we just made fun of all the kids that stunk. I know that's terrible. I shouldn't have said that on the air. Maybe we could edit that out.
All right, that's good stuff. I think that's enough for Hall of Name. Danny closes out the show. Little glimpse into his lavish lifestyle as a major league pitcher. No street races or anything with Brandon Larson. No Poison. Did he go to the Poison concert?
He wasn't with us then. He was still trying to get to the big leagues. That was
seems like a guy who would have loved that. He would have.
He would have been all in it. Yeah. He totally would have been all in it. Yeah. But then again, there was no room in the car for him if he was there because he's a big dude.
All right. He's Danny Graves. I'm Daron Vaught. This has been ACC Baseball Etc. Appreciate your time and your listening. Have a good weekend. I'll be a couple of different places calling games. I've got Friday and Saturday, Louisville at North Carolina. Speaking of Hall of Name, your former teammate Paul Shuey finally back in the booth with me on Friday.
Finally, he's going to work. Jeez,
I haven't seen him all year, so I'm looking forward to hanging with him for Game 1 of that series. Sunday's on ACCN, so I'm not on that one, and I'm starting some Big South preparatory work because I'm doing that conference tournament. So I'll be at Winthrop at High Point on Sunday.
That's a shame you're not on that Sunday game.
Isn't it?
It's a shame.
Right?
I don't know who is, and I don't care, but it's a shame.
Right? The local authorities, right?
Yes.
Your congressman? I don't know that they can do anything about it, but whoever needs to hear about it, right?
Yeah.
Write about it. That's for the listener. It's for the listener.
Tweet it out.
Tweet it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Chaos. That's good. Speaking of Twitter, that's a great segue. At ACC BSB ETC on social media. We would appreciate that. You giving us a follow, interacting with us there. Subscribe to D1 Baseball's YouTube channel as well. And wherever you find us or listen to us on a podcasting platform of your choice, do the thing where you rate and review this show.
Do the thing.
I can't really explain how that helps, but I hear it does. And it pumps our tires a little bit. It'll make us feel good to see a fun, lighthearted review. So if you would,
that's right.
Please do that. And until next time, we'll catch you later.
So long.